All right. Hello, everyone. This is our monthly cards and channeling meetup. I am your host, Sanyu Estelle, and we will be doing the monthly read, which is the Koa reading, our concern card, our opportunity obstacle card, our advantage aversion card. And then for the key card, a deck that I have had a really long time, but pretty rarely comes up to play. The Ancient Feminine Wisdom deck is going to be our key card, and this is mostly Greek, and I'm fairly sure it might be only Greek, but also probably like Roman, Greek and Roman goddesses. I don't even think it's like Celtic or Nordic. But let's see. Well, that's just telling us about the authors. It's not telling us about the deck. Let's see here. I haven't used this deck in a really long time either. It has an astrological spread. Basically, I just think it's Roman and Greek goddesses. So it's not including all of European goddesses, but it's including those. And then once again, we are visited by the visions from the liminal space for our concern, opportunity, obstacle card. If you are at the Vibe Right happy hour, either because you're a Patreon person or because you purchase entry, then you'll know that we got a very intense full moon reading, which, tracks now that I've kind of seen how the month has gone. But because it's our last day, oh, there's a little feedback. Okay. Thank you. Let me see about that. Oh, I know how to fix that, I think. Give me 2 seconds. Where's my little... heard that. Okay. Is it still feedbacky? Is it still feedbacky now? Am I feedbacky? Can you hear me well? If not, I'll just take the headphones out, no big deal. Oh, okay, great. So for the Vibe Right Happy Hour, which for viewers is the reading that I do on every full moon, at least for the year of 2022 for the Lover's Year, which I felt like I needed a little bit more communalness. We got a very intense reading that included cord cutting, trust the process, and the fucking. And I wasn't really sure what that was all about until I saw how the end of March went. Including the Oscars and all that, and just a continued war and just ridiculous opinions across the board. But we are officially on the last day of March. It is March 31st. Happy birthday to all the homies who I know are born on this special day. And we are officially entering not into only Aries season, but April. And, starting off with April Fool's Day. So we're going to see what there is to see here. And again, this is visions in liminal space. So let me do this real quick. Okay. All right, we have those. And now I have to shuffle for the key card. Usually the key card comes at the end, but it wants to join us now. And this says, again, is the Ancient Feminine Wisdom Goddesses and Heroine deck, which features specifically Roman and Greek goddesses. And, to be honest, it may really just be Greek, but I don't know enough about the language to be able to tell you that until I really look at that. So let's see. Okay, all of our cards are present. All right. So for our concern card, our objective, what's objectively going on for the month ahead, approximately the month ahead, right? Because we do this every month. We have the concern card, what's either objectively going on in our life or what's objectively going on in the world, depending on what's taking center stage. Because obviously when our life is more calm, what's going on in the world seems more hectic. And when what's going on in the world is more hectic, our life can seem more calm. It really just depends where your worries are. So for our first card, we have Rewritten History. You can see the books are burning. You know, this is a card that's been coming up for a few clients recently, and I think it's a really important card. Um, and I'll use this example. I like to tell people, you know, there are times after a breakup from a relationship, or being, you know, having to leave a home or apartment or a place that we love, or being let go from a job that we really enjoyed, that we're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that has ever happened to me. And like, I will not recover. But not only that, but like, this is clearly punishment or some sort of reflection of something terrible that I have done. And I have to, you know, reconcile the fact that like better is behind me. And you know, after that, that was what happens immediately after the fact. And then, you know, a year down the line, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, when we enter into a new relationship or find the next great home or the next great job, we realize it was a gift that came to an end in the past, and not punishment, because without that coming to an end, we wouldn't know better. We wouldn't be in circumstances where the conditions of our existence had actually improved, because we didn't know that they could improve, because we can only, you know better, do better, meaning like once you know better, you will do better. But until then, you don't actually know, so you may not actually do. Sometimes we just trip into that by accident, but it doesn't always happen that way. So with the card being rewritten history, one, I mean, this is the entire spectrum, right? On the negative side of the spectrum, we know that there are several oppressive cultures that burn books, you know, the Nazis, the Spaniards, you know, other people, us right now, not burning them, but banning them, right? And us being the United States, for those watching on YouTube. And so what I would say about that is like, it's this idea that we don't have to look or know the past. We don't have to recognize what is, and we can decide what things mean. There's doing that on the positive spectrum. Of course, there's doing that on the negative spectrum. The neutral spectrum is just allowing what is to be what is. You know, I think a lot of people don't recognize that neutrality is like zero energy, which isn't to say none, because zero is not nothing. It's just not accumulative. Zero is a number. It does exist. It makes math possible, but like it's not accumulative. So on the negative spectrum, this can mean people not acknowledging the past, people not acknowledging the present, and also, of course, like with things like climate change, people not acknowledging the inevitable futures. But it can also be on the positive spectrum, this recognition, like everything that came before will serve us now. And we will decide to make a good thing out of a bad circumstance, or as I like to say, get the positive effect out of the negative experience, because we are going to use this now for something that we intend for from this point onward. I can't help what happened in the past, but I can help how I use the past from this point onward. And that's very much this card to me. Of course, I haven't turned over the other cards, so we're not exactly sure exactly what the energy is going to be. But it is Aries season, you know, it is a fire season. It is the first sign of the astrological zodiac wheel. And so we're entering into a period of refreshing. And, you know, rewritten history is also like, you know, refreshing your browser, allowing the information to be reset. And on the what occurred to me is like, oh, in a new strain of COVID, the information is reset, you know, like that you can't go back in history, but you can repeat it, especially if you don't know it. If you don't know history, how do you know that you're repeating it? Which is another ode to the United States, or the well, I like to call us American't or US ain't. Those are kind of, I love how the words just play into that perfectly. But, you know, in American't and US ain't, where we don't acknowledge the past, we don't even realize that we're repeating the past, because we had no awareness of it the first time around. So why would we have any awareness of it ongoing? And on the positive spectrum, though, this is just like, you know, these books are not always necessarily the wonderful texts of the culture. These could be books on Nazism. These could be books on, you know, misogyny. These could be books on how to terrorize the culture and the populace in 30 days. You know, we don't know what these books are, but we can understand that to want to burn a text is the desire to change the narrative. And that can be used either in a negative or a positive way. A neutral way of using changing the narrative is just allowing it to change naturally. You don't really have to do anything. It's going to change one way or the other. People pass away, people forget things, certain types of knowledge become less valuable over time. And we can see that as technology gets increasingly better, that a lot of things are seemingly becoming irrelevant, that for past cultures were very, very important, right? Like when the last people who ever fought in World War II have passed, and when the last people who ever died in the Holocaust have passed, that is them taking knowledge with them. That's them taking experience with them. Just like when the last person who was ever legally enslaved in the States had passed, you know, they're taking a specific lived experience with them that no amount of reading is going to be able to communicate in the way that they could. Now, fortunately for us, we have texts that commemorate these things. And so we can read it in the words of the people who experienced them. But we ourselves have not been immersed or enmeshed in those situations. So for us, we are just simply reading history. And we may not have the same commitment to rewriting it as people who existed during those times might have. And then, of course, this is also what's going on with the Supreme Court justice and people talking about, I don't even remember the word for what that kind of, like that educational, the word that they're using for critical race theory. Okay, I was like, what do they even call that? I just call that racism. We're just talking about racism, but they call it critical race theory because apparently there are certain races that don't get any critique. I mean, that's kind of a crazy thing, but we are in crazy times. Now, our opportunity obstacle card is like, okay, how are we using rewritten history? Is it an obstacle? Is it an opportunity? Are we using it as an elevator? Are we using it as a blockade? Now we can really get into whether this rewritten history is being used positively or negatively. And we have knock, knock, tick, tock. And I love it because these are references. Obviously, it looks like a cell phone at 333, at 3%. But also, these are references to other cards in either in this deck. I haven't looked all through this deck, but this one came up in our Vibe Ride Happy Hour, which I think is Carefree Timelessness. I haven't seen that one. I haven't seen that deck yet either. 222, yes. And I haven't seen, oh yes, all of them. Look, we have a 555. Ooh, come on, camera. We have a 555, we have a 333, we have a 222, and a 222. Ooh, had a ring in your ear when that card came up. Well, it says knock, knock, tick, tock. So, you know, first of all, this card is referential. I'd be curious to know, and maybe I'll look through in a little bit what each of these are referencing, because they're all referencing other cards that are already in the deck. But I think what we know about knock, knock, tick, tock is like, we're at the door, like the thing is ready, right? Like when the food is hot, the microwave goes ding, the toaster oven goes ding, the oven goes ding. So we're at this time where we are ripe to do rewriting of the history. And rewriting doesn't mean erasure. It doesn't say burning of books. It says rewritten history. When you rewrite a book, or when you rewrite a story, or when you rewrite anything, you're still referencing the original material, so it wouldn't be a rewrite. It would just be writing. So rewritten history is also to say, I am looking back in order to reconstruct. And the knock, knock, tick, tock is saying, you know, it's time to look back in order to reconstruct. All this negative stuff that has taken place is giving us the opportunity to go forward with more purpose, to go forward with more consciousness awareness of what is necessary for the circumstances at hand. And that's another thing. When you're from like a highly referential culture, or let's call it nostalgic culture, when you're from a highly nostalgic culture, it can sometimes be really difficult to just be present, because all the things that are present are referring to the past. Okay, so this 222, as you discussed, was carefree timelessness. So we can see that these images are the same, right? Carefree timelessness is on the Tock, which is ironic, right? You know, it's paradoxical that we're talking about time, but we're also talking about timelessness. And so it's just giving, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to be willing to be ready. This doesn't mean that things that are leaving aren't necessarily going to be things that we always want to leave. This one may not actually just be from this, but this one, oh, right, wrong card. This one, which is also a 222, this caution one, and this one says, they know not what they do. And you see this thing that says, don't pull the lever, and they're pulling the lever, but they don't realize that they're going to drop the fucking dumpster on their head, which is another card, right? So we have caution, 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 and they know not what they do, which is, of course, giving us very much Lauryn Hill vibes of forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they do, which is also an ode to humanity, right? Which is that, you know, this is what happens when we damage the environment and we dirty the water and we dirty the air and we create mass unhoused people, and then think that nothing is going to take place in the futures of those acts, as if those acts can go on forever without any sort of response or reverberation or effect. It really makes me think of the movie Elysium, where these people really thought they could build a world in the sky that was dependent upon the earth, and that would not come back to bite them in the ass. Actually, the same can be said of the series Expanse, where humanity has colonized the solar system, and we're out there, you know, by Jupiter, and we're out there on the asteroid belt, and we're on Mars, and we're on the moon, but everyone is relying upon Earth for their food, for their water, and for these other resources that Earth specifically has. Of course, there are minerals and all kinds of rocks and things that are that we use for power sources and for technology that exist in the universe, but drinkable water, breathable air, edible food, these are things that Earth offers us. And so in The Expanse, it's very much about that experience where people are, you know, robbing a place of resources that gives them all the resources. And then just the knock knock TikTok aspect of this is also very much giving, like, your time, your number is up. Like, it's time to get on deck, right? I don't know if all of you went to summer camp when you were kids, or if you even had this kind of summer camp, but, you know, there was like an expression, who's on deck, which is like, who's next? There's people on stage, but who's on deck is this group. And that who's on deck would need to sit by the side of the stage, because as soon as the show wrapped up on stage, they were the next ones to go on. So there's very much this energy too of like, we're on deck. And being on deck in this case is, you know, being the humanity that's present for the experience. There's only so much ignoring and rewriting of history that you can do before, like, the reality comes to meet you. And that's not punishment. That's just what it was. The idea that it was punishment is what kept us pushing it away. So, you know, if you get that phone call from the person that you didn't really want to speak to, but you know that you would need to come to a head with and actually have the conversation with, if you have to bring that topic up on the job that you've been not wanting to be the one to have to do it, but ending up being the one who has to do it because know better, do better. And if you're the one who knows better, then you're the one who has to do it. Or, you know, any number of things. If we have to deal with mass climate change because this summer something disastrous happens, or like something is going to happen that we cannot avoid, it is our time to deal. It is our time to deal. It is our duty to deal. It is our job to deal. And it's because we're here, and that because we have to deal with it, no, like literally. And obviously ignorance comes at the expense of consciousness, right? People say ignorance is bliss, and I'm like, for the ignorant. Ignorant is bliss for the ignorant, because everyone who's not ignorant is picking up the slack. So it's not that it's bliss, it's just that the person who doesn't know that they don't know, and it's a complete system. Those who know that they know, that too is a complete system. So to act like you don't know is to set yourself up to fail. And by failure, I simply mean to not be able to be in alignment with what is. And to not be in alignment with what is simply to be in denial. And denial is not bad, but it also doesn't serve you to a point. So what's interesting is 2 of the cards come from this deck. These 2, the ones next to Tock, the knock, knock, knocks, are actually from the postcards from Liminal Space. And I know that because I have a lot more familiarity with this deck and I've seen these cards a lot more times. But I just wanted to point out that one of the most important ones here we have, oh, it's not even this one, making things up. Here we have a one that says, "This is not a dream." And when I show you that card, you'll see that it accounts for a few of them. And first of all, it's like a materialized dream, right? It's the physicalized dream, because obviously we're living in the imagination of ourselves. This was made up. This was made up. This phone was made up. This hair was made up. This shirt was made up. These are all things that we have constructed. These are not things that were just existing on Earth when we came, as if no one on Earth created them. Here it is. This is not a dream, right? And that's this one. This is not a dream. Okay. And also this one, which is ironic because it's like on top. Oh, it's like an emergency alarm there. This is not a dream. There's no getting away from the reality that is. And the desire to get away from it is the belief that you are not equipped to deal with it. Now, obviously, none of us are capable of doing everything, but we don't have to do everything. We just have to do something. And then together, all of us doing something will take care of everything. But for the ignorant who perpetuate that ignorance or who pretend to be ignorant, that obviously creates a deficit where we're not all able to pick up the slack that is ours and therefore pick up the slack as a community. So we're also dealing with a time where, the heat will be brought to us. It's not so much a choice anymore, especially as we go further and further into the future. We're obviously dealing with generations that have less choice to be ignorant, less choice to be in denial, because the truth will let, which simply means like the truth will let itself out. And that's because it has always existed, and the denial of that hasn't kept it from existing. It's just kept us from being acknowledging of the fact that it exists. So that's the opportunity obstacle. To answer when the door is knocked upon, and to check what time it is, to know what time it is, and to be ready to deal with what that time means for the culture. Last but not least of the Koa, we have the advantage or the aversion card. What about our character is helping or hindering the rewriting of history and the fact that it is time, knock, knock, tick-tock. And our card for that is once again, trust the process, our old friend. Now, for those who haven't seen it yet, you see someone's constructing a little castle and they're looking at the castle instructions, and it says the process. And then you see that there's sovereignty in the background. The sovereignty is on in the back. It's not in question. It doesn't need to be reconstructed. It's not a part of this puzzle. Trust the process. That is what helps improve your character. I just got back today from an interview with my Baba and Iya of my Ile, my Ifa Ile. Ifa is the indigenous tradition of the Yoruba people of what we now call Nigeria. Ile is like saying the house of, so like the church, the temple, the mosque, the house of Ifa. And Baba Fashagun, a Baba is like the spiritual father, the father of mysteries is a technical name for that. And then the Iya is, the mother of the same. And so we talked about, we talked about the fact that, faith is supposed to equip you with the confidence to deal with whatever the circumstances are. And in Ifa, we say, may my character not spoil my destiny. And may good character be the essence of my beauty. So Ifa is a character building tradition. And the only way you can succeed and be a good person of Ifa is to improve your character. And as long as you live, there's always something to improve about your character. Change and learning are not framed as punishment in the system of Ifa. And so when there's something to do, we're grateful that Ifa has given us the answer of what to do. We're not resentful that there is something to do. We're not scared that the fact that we've been entrusted to do something, and we do not give the power over, right? So we were just talking in this interview about how someone will be like, the devil made me do it. And it's like, but you agreed. The devil didn't hold a gun to your head. And even if the devil did hold a gun to your head, we know that throughout history, there have been many humans who have had guns literally held to their head and been told, do this or die. And they said, fucking kill me. And that is a righteous choice that, by the way, improves your character because it allows you to be authentic to what you believe. So this idea that power is outside, that you're not the one deciding the nature of your being and the quality of your character is not a practice of Ifa, at least not the one that I have been raised in. But of course, it's a spectrum, and I'm sure there's all kinds of Ifa Ilays that, you know, are not in integrity. And so it's a bell curve. You can only have so much integrity on a bell curve of how integral your culture was, right? So like, this is also something that we deal with white supremacy. It's like their idea of what integrity is in the white construct system is not the apex of integrity, but it's all that they know, particularly because that culture has been predicated on the fact that they want to oppress the prominence or the importance of other cultures. So it's like, if you won't even allow yourself to consider other cultures and what they think of as character and what they think of as integrity and what they think of as belief in God, then you're going to be uninformed. And that lack of information is going to be the top of your ability to understand things, because of course we're only as good as our most ignorant person. As a society, as a people, as a species, humanity is only as far and as good as its least equipped person, because we're related. And although it would be lovely to look at the top of the bar and think that's the pinnacle and that's the definition, the reality is that ignorance is a full system. So the people at the bottom are completely unaware of that possibility. And the reason that they're unaware of that possibility is because they live a life that allows them to be unaware. So if the top groups of our societies are not working to inform the bottom groups of our society in a way where that makes them equal and eradicates the need for a top or a bottom, then we're going to only be as good as the binary. We're only going to be as good as that dichotomy. So the trust the process to me is like, have faith that you are completely equipped to do what you are being set up to do, right? Like, you can build the castle. If you build it, the sovereigns will come. If you build it, the regency will fly its flag. And for you, that in Ifa means your character. So as long as you allow your character to improve, you don't really have to worry about other people, which isn't to say that like bad things don't happen or that people aren't doing irresponsible shit all the time. But what it is to say is that you are responsible for you. And the fact that bad things happen is no excuse for you to not improve your character, right? Like, the fact that people are violent is not an excuse to be violent. I understand why people would be violent in a violent world, but considering nobody really wants to be on the receiving end of violence, the reason to not do violence is because you don't want to be on the receiving end of violence. And the fact that other people are violent is not a reason unless you decide that it is, in which case existence still accepts you. But the point is, do you prefer to be in a world where that is the case? And if not, do you trust that your not being a part of that is enough to change the world? Or, you know, as Bashar says, you do not change the world. All time exists at once. All worlds exist at once. You simply change yourself, and then you shift to the dimension of Earth that that version of yourself would be on. And if that version of yourself is a nonviolent person, then eventually you will get to a version of Earth where you are amongst nonviolent people. And even if that means that you have to pass on, because a lot of people have this idea that, like, if your dignity is not witnessed by the people, the very people who are in denial of your dignity, then it's not actually present, or it's not actually complete, or it's not actually full. And that's not true. We know that ignorance is a complete system. So trying to get the attention and the approval of people who are in denial is fucking futile. And beyond that, existence witnesses all. So it's like, if you have dignity, you have dignity. And the fact that somebody may kill you prematurely simply because they do not agree with that has no bearing on the fact that you had dignity. The whole point about character is that it belongs to you. Character is not reputation. Reputation is what other people say about you. Character is what is of you. And the fact that people in denial can't recognize that is not actually a discredit to you. It's a credit to you, because the people who know nothing about you. That's okay. As far as you're concerned with the universe, your ledger is full. It is complete and it's in proper order. So I'm actually very curious to see what goddess stepped forward, or heroine, for that matter. And again, I don't use this deck that often.